All right, so I hear you're really looking to just crush the IELTS and that you're especially interested in how getting those listening skills super sharp can really boost your speaking score.
Yeah.
It's kind of a fascinating connection.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today.
Yeah.
We've got some really interesting links between those two skills. Plus, we've got some very tactical advice that we pulled from the Fluentify English podcast IELTS Mastery series.
Okay.
Did you know that the IELTS listening test is kind of like its own little puzzle with its own set of rules?
It really is.
Yeah.
It's 30 minutes,
Yeah.
40 questions. But it's not just understanding the words, it's kind of understanding the game.
The game, huh?
I like that.
Tell me more about these rules because honestly, the variety of accents alone in those recordings can throw me off.
Right. You have to tune your ear to those accents for sure.
Right.
But one of the biggest rules is that the answers often follow the order that they appear in the audio. So you're not jumping all over the place in the questions. You're following the conversation's natural flow.
That actually calms my nerves a little bit. It makes
Right.
it feel a little bit more manageable.
Yeah.
Okay, so this podcast we're diving into mentions some examiner secrets.
Yes.
Spill the tea. What's the first one?
They call it predict before you listen. And it's particularly powerful for certain question types, especially those asking for specific details like names or dates.
Okay, so before the audio even starts, I should be looking for clues in the questions, trying to figure out what kind of information I should be listening for.
Precisely.
Ooh.
Let's say you see a question like, what is the name of the company?
Right.
Well, to prime your ears for a proper noun,
Yeah.
maybe even a brand name,
Okay.
it just helps you cut through the noise and focus on what matters.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
I can see how that would reduce panic during the test.
Yeah.
What's the next secret weapon?
This one's about those pesky distractors.
You know those sneaky bits of information that are designed to make you second guess yourself?
Ugh, yes. Like they'll mention something that sounds right,
Right.
but then the speaker will completely change their mind later on. It's so frustrating.
They're testing your ability to listen for the subtle shifts and qualifications in the speaker's language.
Yeah.
For instance, the speaker might say, I was thinking about going to the museum, but then I realized it's closed on Mondays.
Right.
If the question asks about the speaker's plans, you need to catch that shift in intention.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just hear key words.
Right.
You have to understand the context, too. I bet synonyms and paraphrasing also play a big role here, right?
Absolutely. You're rarely going to hear the exact wording in the audio as you see in the questions they're checking if you truly grasp the concept, not just the specific vocabulary.
So if a question uses the word advantage, the speaker might say benefit or positive aspect.
Exactly.
It's like a vocabulary test within a listening test.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Now here's a simple but surprisingly helpful tip from the podcast. They recommend using all capital letters for your answers. I know it sounds odd, but wait, all caps. Is this some kind of secret code the examiners are looking for?
No, it's more about practicality.
Oh, okay.
If your handwriting isn't the neatest, using all caps can just make sure that the examiner can clearly read your responses.
Okay.
No lost points because of messy handwriting.
Wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah,
It's like a little insurance policy for your answers.
exactly.
Okay, so we've got some serious intel on the listening test itself.
Yes.
But now I'm really curious about this connection between listening and speaking. I hear it's a bit of a game changer.
It is.
Okay.
Think about it this way. When you immerse yourself in spoken English,
Yeah.
you're essentially training your brain to process language more effectively. It's like working out your language muscles.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does that translate to better speaking? It's not like listening magically makes me more eloquent.
Not magically, no, but there's a definite link. The podcast actually breaks it down into 4 key benefits.
Okay.
Fluency, pronunciation, vocabulary, and confidence.
Those are some pretty big claims.
Yeah.
Let's break them down, starting with fluency. How does simply listening help me speak more smoothly?
It's all about absorbing the rhythm and flow of natural spoken English.
Okay.
You start to pick up on where native speakers pause, where they emphasize certain words and how they connect sounds.
Yeah.
It's like learning a secret language code.
So instead of sounding like a robot reading a script, I start to sound more natural, more like a native speaker. I'm guessing pronunciation ties into this as well.
Absolutely. By hearing different accents and pronunciations, you train your ear to pick up on those subtle nuances of sound.
Yeah.
It's like fine-tuning your instrument, your voice, to be more in tune with the music of the language.
I'm starting to see the light here, and I bet the vocabulary boost is pretty self-explanatory, right? The more I listen, the more words I pick up.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like expanding your linguistic toolbox with new tools, new words and phrases to express yourself more effectively. And the best part is you're picking them up in context, so you learn how to use them naturally.
Okay, I'm sold on the fluency, pronunciation, and vocabulary benefits, but confidence, how does that fit into the equation?
Confidence comes from understanding. When you can clearly understand the questions in the speaking test, you're less likely to panic or freeze up.
Right.
You can respond more calmly and coherently, which projects confidence.
So it's not just about what I say, but how I say it. Confidence shines through when I'm not stumbling over words or struggling to understand the question.
Precisely. Now, the podcast also highlighted a technique that takes this listening-speaking connection to the next level.
Okay.
They call it shadowing. Have you heard of it?
Shadowing, it sounds kind of mysterious. What is it exactly?
It's actually quite simple, but incredibly effective.
Right.
It involves listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say almost simultaneously, trying to mimic their pronunciation and intonation as closely as possible. So like a parrot, but with the goal of sounding more human?
Think of it as having a real-time language coach in your ear. You're not just passively listening. You're actively engaging with the language, trying to reproduce it accurately.
I'm intrigued the podcast called it a Goldie strategy for fluency, and I can see why. But does it have to be super formal? Can I shadow, say, a character on a TV show?
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
can shadow anything or anyone you enjoy listening to as long as they speak clear, natural English.
Okay.
It's about making it fun and engaging for yourself. Think of it as a game, a way to play with the language.
Okay, I'm ready to give this shadowing thing a try.
Yeah.
So we've got the examiner's secrets, the powerful link between listening and speaking, and this cool shadowing technique. What else can our listener do to really sharpen their listening skills for the IELTS?
Well, the podcast emphasized the importance of consistent practice.
Okay.
They recommend dedicating some time each day to actively listening to English.
Got it. Daily listening practice is key, but what are the best resources for this? Should I just turn on the news and hope for the best?
The news can be a good option, but they specifically recommended resources like BBC Learning English and TED Talks.
Those are great choices. BBC Learning English is specifically designed for language learners, and TED Talks are always fascinating, no matter your level. Plus, the variety of accents in TED Talks is incredible.
Exactly. Now, alongside listening practice, they also stress the importance of good note-taking techniques.
Note-taking, I'm used to zoning out and hoping my brain absorbs information by osmosis.
We've all been there. But active note-taking forces you to stay focused and engage with the audio.
Okay.
It helps you process the information more deeply and remember those key details that might pop up in the test.
So instead of trying to write down everything, I should aim for keywords, phrases, main ideas.
Exactly. It's about creating a mental map of the audio, a roadmap to guide you through the information.
Okay, note-taking, check. What else do we have in our arsenal of listening skills?
This next technique is one of my favorites.
Okay.
They call it speak what you hear, and it beautifully ties together listening and speaking practice.
Okay. All ears. Tell me more.
It's simple, but powerful. After listening to a podcast news segment or even a TED Talk, take a few minutes to summarize what you've heard out loud in your own words.
So it's like having a conversation with myself about what I've just learned?
Exactly. It's a way to check your comprehension practice, speaking fluently, and reinforce those new vocabulary words you've picked up.
I love that it's like turning passive listening into active learning. Plus, if I'm alone, I don't have to worry about making mistakes.
Exactly. And speaking of mistakes, don't be afraid to make them.
Right.
The more you practice speaking even to yourself, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
Okay, so we've got daily listening, practice, note-taking, and speaking out loud, what we've heard. Anything else?
One last technique, and this one is a bit of a challenge, but it can be incredibly rewarding.
Okay.
They call it speed listening.
Speed listening, does that involve listening to podcasts at 2x speed while running on a treadmill? Because that sounds a bit intense.
It's not quite that extreme, but it does involve gradually increasing the playback speed on podcasts or audiobooks.
Okay, so maybe more like a brisk walk than a full-on sprint, but what's the benefit of this?
It's all about training your ears to process information more quickly.
Oh.
It challenges you to stay focused and catch those key details, even when the speaker is talking at a faster pace. Plus, it can help you feel more comfortable with the speed of the IELTS listening test, where the audio is only played once.
So it's like a mental workout for my ears. What's a good starting point?
Start with a small increase, maybe 1.25x speed. See how that feels, and gradually increase it as you get more comfortable. Don't push yourself too hard too quickly. It's about finding a balance between challenge and comprehension.
Wow, this is a whole new way of listening. It's like unlocking a hidden level in my language learning game.
It is, and remember, the key is consistency and enjoyment.
Right?
The more you immerse yourself in the language, the more natural and effortless it will become.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored the listening tests, uncovered examiner secrets, discovered the powerful link between listening and speaking, and equipped our listener with some serious practice techniques. I feel like we've given them a real toolkit for success. It's like we've given them a treasure map to IELTS success, complete with secret pathways and hidden gems.
Yeah.
But before we send our listener off on their quest, let's take a moment to recap those key takeaways, shall we?
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's easy to get lost in the details, so let's highlight the big picture stuff.
Okay, so first and foremost, the IELTS listening test is all about understanding spoken English in various situations. Think different accents, topics you might not be familiar with, and just the general flow of a conversation.
Exactly. It's not just about catching individual words. It's about understanding the speaker's intention, their overall message.
And one of the most powerful tools we uncovered for doing that is the predict before you listen technique. Just taking a few seconds to scan the questions and think about what kind of information you're looking for can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. It's like setting your mental radar to the right frequency so you can pick up the signals you need.
And remember, the answers often follow the order they appear in the audio. That little nugget of information alone can save you so much stress during the test.
It's like having a secret advantage, knowing the game plan in advance.
Speaking of advantages, let's not forget those pesky distractors, those sneaky little traps the examiner set to test your attention to detail.
Ah, yes. The distractors, remember, they're often placed strategically to catch you out.
Right.
You might hear something that sounds right initially, but then the speaker might change direction or clarify something later on.
It's all about listening for those subtle cues, those shifts in meaning that can completely change the answer.
And don't forget the power of synonyms and paraphrasing. You're unlikely to hear the exact same wording in the audio as you see in the questions.
So building up a strong vocabulary is crucial, but it's also about understanding that a single concept can be expressed in multiple ways. It's like learning to speak the language in all its colorful variations.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears and revisit that amazing connection between listening and speaking. It's something that many test takers overlook, but it's a true game changer.
I'm still amazed by how much my own speaking has improved just by consciously focusing on my listening skills. It's like my brain has been secretly absorbing all this information, and now it's starting to come out in my speaking.
It's incredible, isn't it? The more you immerse yourself in spoken English, the more natural and effortless your own speaking becomes. It's like osmosis for language skills.
And we can't forget that super cool shadowing technique. I've been having so much fun with it, and I can already feel my pronunciation and fluency improving.
It's such a powerful technique because it forces you to actively engage with the language, not just passively listen. It's like having a personal pronunciation coach in your ear.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We've cracked the code of the listening test, unlocked the secret connection between listening and speaking, and equipped our listener with a powerful set of practice techniques. But before we wrap up this deep dive, what's one final thought-provoking question that our listener can ponder as they continue their IELTS journey?
That's a great question. I would ask them this: how can you personalize these techniques and strategies to fit your unique learning style and interests?
That's brilliant. It's a reminder that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to language learning. It's all about finding what works best for you and making it your own. So whether you're a podcast enthusiast, a movie buff, or a news junkie, find ways to incorporate English into your daily life in a way that feels fun and engaging.
Exactly. And remember, the IELTS is just one step on your journey. Don't let it define. You keep learning, keep growing, and keep exploring the incredible world of language.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the IELTS listening and speaking secrets. We hope you found it helpful and inspiring.
It was my pleasure. Best of luck on your IELTS journey. You've got this.
All right, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.